Your stories, your money. This is Rip Off Britain. Am I looking forward to that or what? Because judging from our postbag and inbox, energy bills remain one of your absolute biggest bugbears. And here's a really good example of why. Dean Harrigan has spent the last 3 years trying to make sense of his energy bills. Not just because it wasn't clear whether or not he was in credit, let alone which of the wildly differing amounts on each bill was correct, but because he found the sheer number of bills his supplier Npower was sending absolutely impossible to fathom. But it didn't start that way. In fact, after his first bill in August 2012, the company didn't send him another for 10 months.
We were starting to get a little bit tentative as to where's the bill and what is the bill, because we hadn't received anything at that time.
And when that next bill finally did arrive in June 2013, it was for a whopping £2,135.38, well over what Dean was expecting.
This is a triple glazed, it's a fully insulated, triple level 3 insulation in the loft as well. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a really covered house.
But Dean's bill wasn't just unexpectedly high. The bill also stated it was for estimated readings, which to Dean made no sense because he was absolutely certain that he'd provided them with actual readings.
They said, OK, let's get the meter readings checked and clarified. So we checked the meter readings and there was a massive discrepancy. And the problem being is we couldn't get to the fact of where the discrepancy had come from.
After investigating further, Npower reversed the bill and refunded what Dean had paid as credit back to his account. Dean was reassured that all was back on track, but there then followed a 7-month period where he received no bills whatsoever, brought to an abrupt end in February 2014, when, to his utter astonishment, the company issued him with no less than 10 of them on the same day. Now, 6 of these were telling Dean that he owed money of varying amounts, whilst the other 4 were telling him that his account was in credit. As each seemed to cover slightly different periods, Dean was totally baffled as to what he was supposed to owe. A similar pattern would continue into the coming months and years, leaving Dean very angry and his head spinning.
The bill would turn up at like £1,700. And we're like, this is absolutely impossible. We're not even 3 months into the new cycle, and I've got bills here, £1,300. The next week it was £1,200. 3 weeks later, it's £1,500 in the same cycle. We just couldn't make head nor tail of what their bills were.
By now, Dean was at the end of his tether, and with a marriage to his fiancée Anya on the horizon, trying to decipher his energy bills was the last thing he wanted.
It just got to a point where I was phoning and emailing, and we were getting no results. Absolutely no results. I simply didn't have the time to support my family, have a family life, and try and deal with the full-time role of dealing with Npower.
With nowhere else to turn, Dean did what all good boys do and called in his mother.
Yeah, I mean, Mum, I asked you to take over this because it's just, you can see from this, it's spiralling out of control. You know, this has really, really been a bad time for the family. Really been a bad time.
I know. I'm only pleased that I have the time to do it, Dean.
His mum, Sheila, tried going online to get to the bottom of it all, but she ended up just as stumped as her son by the confusing and erratic bills he was receiving.
What I can't understand is how these are all generated on the same day on your account, and yet they all differ, some saying they've got readings, some say estimates. So they either have readings or they don't. So how do we know that the readings are given and the figures are given are correct anyway?
I phoned these guys up and said, how on earth can I owe £120 odd when you're saying I was in credit by 5,000, which we couldn't clarify?
Yeah. I called them and they couldn't explain it. They said they need to look into it and get back to us.
Okay.
They seem to be just totally incompetent. They can't even seem to get a correct bill out to you even when you give them the readings. And they're just not consistent. They say they've amended it and you're in credit. Then they say, no, you owe them money, but there's no record of where that extra credit's gone.
While it's Dean's supplier Npower that we've had most complaints about here at Rip Off Britain, over the last year, once again, we've had hundreds of complaints about all of the big 6 energy companies. And it's generally the same sort of stories we keep hearing. Like Dean, David King was being sent multiple and confusing bills by his supplier.
I've received 12 different bills with varying amounts. The difference in amounts is over £100.
Or sometimes, as happened to Sue Slade, while you've only had one bill, it's for completely the wrong amount.
I was shocked to receive a bill from the gas company who supply my electricity for 15,100 and something else pounds. I was mortified and incredibly shocked. In fact, I only owed 380 something pounds.
Well done, Sue. Now, you've told us about how you've been put on the wrong tariff or about problems after switching supplier. And we've even heard of situations where people have ended up with bills from more than one company, as was the case for Roy Hancock.
At the end of the day, I've ended up paying two electricity companies for the same electricity supply to my house. I've paid double, which I shouldn't have been paying, obviously.
Complaints like this are all too familiar to citizens' advice, who say the #1 gripe for people about energy companies is shoddy billing.
One is that we have a really old-fashioned system. We don't have smart meters, so there's problems there in the technology itself. But also, companies just don't seem to be very good. Companies just, they bring in new billing systems to try and improve something, and this inevitably leads to more complaints, and it's really frustrating for consumers. So obviously, energy companies should be improving their service and giving their customers a good deal. If that's not happening, then there needs to be action by the regulator to step in to ensure that consumers are being treated fairly and that people are getting decent service and fair prices.
Meanwhile, in Southampton, Dean decided to switch from Npower to another provider. He says his current bills are regular and accurate, but even now, he's still having problems with Npower.
As far as I was concerned, the bills were settled and finalised, and we were expecting to receive 1 month small bill, obviously from the changeover period. And then 3 months later, we were shocked to receive a bill of £916, when, to be honest, I was expecting 1 month's bill at nowhere near that sort of value. So a little bit of a shock to the system, and again, the process is still not over.
When we looked at Dean's bill, we could see that one of the reasons his bills were coming out higher than expected was because he was on Npower's standard tariff, which will rarely be the cheapest rate. But that does nothing to explain the volume of bills he was getting, or why they were all so different. So we contacted Npower for an explanation, and when we did, the company told us it's sorry for the issues Dean has had, and the time it's taken to resolve them. It said the problems were down to incorrect meter readings, but that the account is now correct, and it's reduced the final amount owed to £450 by way of apology for any inconvenience this has caused. That's good news for Dean, but he's still very frustrated at the confusion that all of this has caused, although he's delighted that with his new supplier, the bills seem to be more straightforward.
But look at our new bills.
Yeah.
Look at our new bills. The current supplier's been done meter readings, same boiler. Everything is exactly the same in this house, and we're running at £106 a month. I cannot be using 3 times the amount of gas and electric on the same property. Impossible.
Even good old mum couldn't help him sort it out. Well, Lawrence Slade is from the body that represents all the suppliers. The body is called Energy UK, and that's important because it's all the main suppliers. Now, Lawrence, I have to tell you, this is the 4th time we've met. In fact, I think it's the 7th time I've talked to Energy UK. This is probably one of the most stupid and ridiculous situations I've ever heard.
I think that last piece of VT, I would agree. It was extraordinary, and it obviously can't go on like that. And part of what we're trying to achieve is rebuild trust with consumers, and that doesn't help. But
the problem is it is going on. I mean, you heard even at the end, even though he's changed supplier, Npower is still sending him bills.
I agree, and I think the point is that you saw Audrey from Consumer Citizen Advice there, and I think we are on the verge of actually upgrading all the technology. We're about to roll out smart meters to every household in the country, and that is a massive infrastructure programme that will start solving these problems. So you move away from estimated bills, and most billing complaints are around estimated bills.
I know, but you tell me this every year. I'm sorry, but you do. You're a very nice man, but you always promise that it's being sorted out. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, but the reality is it doesn't change. We still have all these problems.
For many companies, over the last couple of quarters, we've seen complaint volumes fall. So for a lot of the large suppliers, a lot of the small suppliers, we're seeing complaints coming down as these investments I've talked about have come through.
Well, I'm sorry, billing, let me just say this on that point. Billing complaints have gone up 50%. So how can you justify it?
But not across the industry. That's the point I'm making. And it's really important consumers understand that there is choice now. There are 31 suppliers in this market. 310,000 households changed supplier last month. Something like 3 million will change supplier this year. You can change on cost, the amount you pay every month, every year. You can also change on customer service or the type of energy you want.
But here's the point. I can speak from personal experience. I did take your advice a couple of years back and I changed my supplier. Guess what? I've now gone off the lovely, attractive tariff that they brought me in on, and they've now put me on a standard tariff. And I know from this programme the standard isn't always the best. But in this vein, Alex has been in touch to say that he's been with 2 energy companies who changed twice. Both promised to save him money, but they've actually become more expensive after he signed up. Now his current supplier are making it hard for him to switch, keeping him on an expensive tariff. So are you going to take a look at that and actually give us some results?
I'll happily take a look at that, because the whole point is switching should get you a better deal. If you use some of the comparison sites or you just speak to your company, make sure you've got accurate meter bills, make sure you've got your annual usage. You should be able to get a better deal. We've made switching faster now, so it takes up around 3 weeks or less to actually switch supplier.
But not always cheaper.
It should be, and this is the thing. Since you and I last spoke, you know, there were barely a handful of tariffs under £1,000 a year. I checked this morning, the cheapest tariff on the market is £799. There are deals for your viewers out there, and it doesn't actually take
Well, I have to
long
leave
do
it at
so.
that point, but may I say you're a nice man, but I hope I don't see you in this programme again with exactly the same story.
So do I. Thank you.
Also with us tomorrow will be legal expert Gary Rycroft and an expert in all manner of shopping, a bit like myself really this afternoon. Her name is Iona Bain.
We had to give you that story.
Oh yeah, exactly. Absolutely tailor-made for me. So if you've got any burning questions for all of them tomorrow, do let us know. In the meantime, we've loved your company today. Make sure you're here. We'll do it all over again tomorrow morning at 9:15. So until then, have a great afternoon, and from all of us, bye-bye.
Bye.